Hello, and welcome to a journey through the stories of the past. Tonight, we will return together to the northernmost land of Vietnam, the rocky plateau of Hà Giang. There, in the Sa Phin Valley, stands a century-old residence forever linked to the name of a legendary figure, the Hmong King, Vương Chính Đức. In the stillness of the night, let this story guide you through moss-covered stone walls, curved yin-yang roof tiles, and the many turns of history carried by the Vuong family, a memory deeply rooted in Hà Giang in Vietnam. And when the tale comes to an end, may you find within yourself a gentle peace, as if being lulled to sleep by the very breath of the mountains at the edge of the nation. As the 19th century drew to a close, Vietnam was caught in the turbulence of great change. In the lowlands, the Hue royal court was weakening, and the country was gradually falling into the hands of the French colonizers. Meanwhile, in the far northern mountains, where limestone peaks rose like natural stone fortresses, life followed its own rhythm, harsh yet full of pride. Hà Giang at that time was unlike anywhere else. Stretching from Quan Ba Yen Min, Dung Van to Mao Vac, the land was covered almost entirely in stone. Jagged cliffs jutted skyward, rocks piled upon rocks, spreading endlessly toward the horizon. Amidst this gray expanse, people still clung to life. They sowed corn in cracks between stones, raised buffalo and horses on steep slopes, and gathered cardamom and medicinal herbs from the deep forests. The Hmong people were the largest community in this land. They had migrated to the highlands centuries earlier, bringing with them their customs, their canned flutes, their colorful dresses, and an unyielding will to endure. On misty hillsides, smoke rose from earthen houses with yin-yang roof tiles, where families shared warmth against the biting wind. Life was simple and often poor, but the community held together like one large family. Yet peace was never truly secure here. Hà Giang lay far from the royal court, close to the border with Yunnan, China. For centuries, bands of marauders had crossed the frontier, raiding and pillaging. The people lived in constant vigilance. To play the can, one also had to know the blade. To till the soil, one also had to shoulder a flintlock rifle. By the late 19th century, the situation grew even more complicated. The French expanded deeper into Tonkin, consolidating their power in the lowlands before sending troops into the mountains. They sought to control the border routes, collect taxes on opium, and most of all, impose their authority on these remote lands. But Hà Giang was not easy to subdue. The great clans of the Hmong, Dao, and Tay maintained their own power, refusing to bow easily to outsiders. For the common people, survival meant enduring both the cruelty of nature and the pressure of politics. Corn and rice harvests were uncertain. Children grew up hardened by hunger and cold. Strong men either worked the fields or joined their clan's militias. In each valley, the clan with the greatest power would raise a leader, not only to protect the community, but also to prove its strength. Among these places, Dung Van Mao Vac stood out as the heart of the highlands. Its rugged terrain was easy to defend, difficult to attack, and rich in cardamom and opium, resources coveted by both Chinese traders and the French. Whoever controlled this region would wield influence over the entire plateau. It was here that a man began to emerge from among the people, Vương Chính Đức. At that time, he was not yet the Hmong King, nor did he own a grand stone palace. He was simply the son of a respected family, raised among smoke-filled kitchens and the neighing of horses on the rocky hills. Yet his sharp mind, courage, and foresight soon drew attention. In those closing years of the century, as the sound of gunfire reached the plateau, the people longed for someone to lead them, someone who could defend them, someone they could trust. And it was then that fate began to place Vương Chính Đức on the path to becoming a true leader. In the latter half of the 19th century, in the rocky valley of Sa Phin, a Hmong boy was born into the Vuong family. His name was Vương Chính Đức, the one who, years later, would be revered as the Hmong King. Chinduk's childhood unfolded amidst misty winters and bright springs when peach blossoms lit up the stony hillsides. The house he grew up in was built with earthen walls, its roof of simple tiles, always warmed by the glow of a central fire. Meals were humble, corn as the staple, sometimes dried meat or wild greens. Yet within that modest home, young Chinduk was raised with love and discipline. His father was a respected man in the community, known for mediating disputes between clans and organizing defenses against bandits. From an early age, Chinduk would follow his father to village meetings, listening to discussions about crops, land, and protection from invaders. Even as a child, he sensed that survival in these harsh mountains required not just strength, but also wisdom and compassion. There were no schools, no books. Chinduk's education came from the mountains themselves. He learned how to plant corn in cracks between rocks, how to lead horses along treacherous slopes, how to track wild animals, and how to find water in times of drought. On moonlit nights, the sound of the Ken flute echoed across the valleys. Children gathered under starlight while elders sat by the fire, telling stories of their ancestors' migrations, of battles fought to defend their land, of sacred oaths sworn at stone altars. Young Chinduk's eyes glowed as he absorbed every word, as if weaving those tales into his very being. Even as a boy, Chinduk stood apart from his peers. When quarrels broke out among children, he was the one who sought compromise rather than fists. Adults watching him would nod knowingly. This boy has the head of a leader. By his teenage years, he often followed his father deep into the forests, facing real dangers. Once their group was ambushed by bandits. While others panicked, the young boy calmly suggested retreating through a narrow mountain pass. His quick thinking saved them, and word of his bravery spread through the villages. Yet his childhood was not free from hardship. It was marked by long winters of hunger, by the constant threat of raids, and by the looming presence of soldiers from the Nguyen court or the French far away. Whenever he saw his people oppressed or wronged, his eyes would flash with anger. His father often told him, "You must endure like the mountains, but bend like the corn growing from stone. Only then can you guide others." Chinduk never forgot those words. Years passed, and the boy became a young man, strong from labor, resilient from hardship, and sharp-eyed from observing life. He was no longer just the son of a respected family, but already a figure that others looked up to. It is said that during one harsh winter, when disease struck the village's horses, Chinduk traveled far to find herbs and saved many of the prized animals. To the Hmong, horses were treasures. From that moment, his reputation grew even stronger. At the same time, news of the French advance, of wars and upheavals, reached the plateau. Fear spread through the highlands. Many villages longed for a protector, someone strong yet wise. More and more eyes turned toward the young man of the Vung clan. Thus ended the childhood of Vung Chinduk, a childhood shaped not by books, but by mountains, hardship, and the voices of his people. From it, he carried a deep understanding of humanity, a bond with the land, and a will that refused to bow. All of this would become the foundation for his path ahead, the path that led him to become the leader of a whole region, and later, the Hmong King remembered through the ages. In the late 19th century, life on the Dongvan Mao Vac Plateau was never truly peaceful. Bandits from across the Yunnan border often swept into the villages, spreading fear wherever they went. Whenever the corn ripened or the horses grew strong, they would appear, looting and burning, leaving the people in constant dread. Amidst this turmoil, the name Vung Chinduk began to rise. It was not only his youthful strength that set him apart, but also his ability to organize and to strategize. When bandits threatened a village, he never rushed headlong into battle. Instead, he observed their movements, divided the villagers into small groups, set stone traps, and arranged ambushes in the narrow mountain passes. Again and again, larger raiding parties were driven back by his cunning defenses. Word spread quickly, and soon neighboring villages sought his help. When disputes arose over land or livestock, people called upon Chính Đức to arbitrate. He listened carefully to both sides before giving a verdict. Those who gained were satisfied, and even those who lost accepted his judgment, for his decisions were seen as fair and just. From then on, the people regarded him as their pillar of support. Yet he was not only a defender. Chính Đức also thought of ways to improve the community's livelihood. He encouraged villagers to clear more cornfields, to store food against lean years. He organized small trading expeditions to nearby regions, exchanging horses and cardamom for salt and cloth. Such efforts gradually eased the hardships of the people, while deepening their trust in him. His youth was marked by long days roaming the mountains, sometimes carrying a flintlock to guard the villages, sometimes wielding a blade to clear fields, and often standing as the elder brother in matters of judgment and guidance. His reputation grew not only from his strength, but from his fairness and his concern for the well-being of the people. When the French advanced into the mountains, many local leaders faltered, uncertain of how to respond. But Vương Chính Đức was different. He understood that to preserve both land and people, one must be firm yet flexible. His youth became the crucible in which his reputation was forged. From a young man of Sa Phen, he rose to become the leader whom the entire plateau would revere, laying the foundation for the title he would one day bear, the Hmong King. At the end of the 19th century, when the French had secured much of the lowlands of Tonkin, they began to turn their eyes toward the high mountains where Hà Giang rose like a natural stone fortress. Soldiers armed with modern rifles, administrators carrying maps and decrees, slowly pushed their way onto the Dong Van Plateau. Their goal was not merely to set boundary markers, but to control the opium trade routes and the passes that led into Yunnan. The people of these mountains watched the arrival of French troops with unease. They had never bowed to foreign power, and they had no desire to become servants on their own land. In those uncertain days, the name Vương Chính Đức echoed across the highlands as a pillar of strength. He understood that this enemy was unlike any he had faced before. Bandits could be repelled with ambushes and courage, but the French came with superior weapons, strict discipline, and an ambition that would not easily fade. Yet Chính Đức did not falter. He organized the villagers into defenses, dividing them into small groups to guard the narrow passes. Whenever French troops advanced, stones were sent tumbling from above. Arrows and flintlock volleys struck suddenly from hidden ridges, and the invaders were thrown into confusion. The plateau itself seemed to resist them, and Chính Đức knew how to turn every cliff and ravine into his ally. Skirmishes followed one after another. Sometimes won, sometimes lost, but never did the French succeed in breaking the will of the people. Slowly, they began to realize that this land could not be easily subdued. Vương Chính Đức was no mere local leader. He had become a symbol of defiance. Every step he took was watched by his people, every decision tied to their survival. After years of struggle, the French were forced to change their approach. In 1913, a treaty was signed that recognized the authority of the Vương clan over Dong Van and Meo Vac. From that moment, Vương Chính Đức was honored with the title Chính Vương, and the people began to call him the Hmong King. It was a name born of both respect and resilience, a mark that he had endured the greatest trial of his life, facing a foreign empire yet preserving his land, his reputation, and the unyielding spirit of freedom on the cold stone plateau. After the Treaty of 1913, the name of Vương Chính Đức spread far beyond the villages of Sa Phen. The French, though still keeping watch, were forced to recognize his authority over the Dong Van Meo Vac region. It was a turning point. From a local leader who rose through the strength of his people, he became the acknowledged ruler of the entire Stone Plateau. His reputation did not rest solely on battles won, but also on his vision. Chính Đức understood that for a clan to endure, it could not rely only on armed strength. It needed economic stability, cultural roots, and above all, a symbol to unite the people. With this in mind, he resolved to build a great residence, one that would serve as his home, his seat of power, and a lasting emblem of the Hmong clan's authority. He chose the land of Sa Phin, where mountains encircled the valley, where a hill shaped like a turtle promised protection, and where streams of clear water wound their way through the rocks. Hundreds of laborers and master craftsmen were summoned from distant regions. The construction lasted nearly 10 years and consumed tens of thousands of Indo-Chinese silver coins, a fortune that astonished the entire region. When the stone walls finally rose thick and strong and the curved yin-yang tiles covered the roofs, the Hmong residence appeared like a fortress, majestic amid the wilderness of Sa Phin. The mansion was more than a house. It was a declaration that the Hmong clan had become a force of power, capable of defending its people, of negotiating with both the French and the royal court. The meter-thick stone walls resisted not only the biting winds, but also the prying eyes of outsiders. Inside were spacious chambers, reception halls adorned with fine wood carvings, and long corridors that seemed to bridge past and future. Once the residence was completed, the road to the Hmong clan grew busy. Villagers came seeking justice, merchants brought goods to trade, even French envoys passed through its moss-covered gates to negotiate. Across Dong Van and Mao Vac, people began to see the Hmong not just as a family, but as the very center of authority. At the same time, Chin Duk reorganized production. Corn and opium were treated as lifelines, feeding the people and traded for salt, cloth, and weapons. He set rules for taxation, divided the farmlands, and maintained order so that the plateau did not descend into chaos. The balance between discipline and protection bound the people to the Hmong clan as though it were their own kin. The clan's power grew stronger with each year. Beneath the yin-yang roof tiles of Sa Phin, the tale of the Hmong King spread, a leader both unyielding and nurturing, a man who could defend yet also build. From then on, the name of Vương Chính Đức and the Hmong clan became inseparable from the image of the land itself, a living symbol of pride and endurance for the Hmong people on the stone plateau of Hà Giang. By the time the yin-yang roof tiles of the Sa Phin mansion had begun to gather moss, Vương Chính Đức had already entered the twilight of his life. After decades of guarding the land, fighting enemies, and building his domain, he knew that one day he would have to leave the stone throne of the plateau to the younger generation. Among his children, Vương Chí Sình shone brightest, like a flame destined to inherit the legacy. Chí Sình grew up to the sound of the can flute calling friends and the stories of his father's victories. He was sent early to study Quoc Ngu, classical Chinese, and later even French, not only to gain knowledge, but also to converse with the outside world, something his father remained wary of. Chin Duk once told him, "To protect the mountains, you must understand those from the lowlands. To protect the people, you must understand outsiders." Chí Sình carried those words as an oath of maturity. As a young man, he often accompanied his father to trials and to receptions with French officials and mandarins of the royal court. He observed how his father spoke, how he listened to the people, and how he remained silent when facing unreasonable demands from foreigners. Every small gesture became a great lesson, shaping an heir who not only knew how to wield weapons, but also how to wield words. By his 20s, Chí Sình was entrusted with responsibilities, managing villages, mediating disputes, and especially serving as a bridge to the French authorities. To the French, he appeared as a literate, polite young figure, perhaps a key to maintaining order in the plateau. To the Hmong people, however, he was seen as a leader in the making, approachable yet strong. The true test came when Chin Duk fell ill. Outsiders hoped that the weakening of the father would dissolve the Hmong clan's power, but Chí Sình did not waver. With his father's trust, he stepped forward to govern, firm in upholding order, flexible in negotiation, and decisive in moments of choice. In 1945, history itself turned with the August Revolution. The Vietnamese nation rose to reclaim independence, and by then Chí Sình had come of age. He chose the path of the revolution, becoming a delegate to the First National Assembly, and later one of the first ethnic minority leaders to speak in the nation's legislature. From a Highland chief, he became part of the country's new history, carrying with him his father's indomitable spirit and the pride of the plateau. Thus, the path of Vương Chí Sình was not merely the succession of family power. It was an expansion, from the stone mansion of Sa Phinh to the horizon of an independent nation. He was both heir and pioneer, leaving behind a legacy that showed the Vuong clan lived not only within stone walls, but within the history of Vietnam itself, as a symbol of wisdom, courage, and the unyielding desire for freedom. After 1945, as the nation entered a new era, the Vuong family mansion in Sa Phinh was no longer just the residence of a clan. It became a silent witness of history. Vương Chính Đức passed away, and Vương Chí Sình carried forward a new path, transforming from a Highland chieftain into a National Assembly delegate, a representative of his people at the nation's parliament. Yet the stone mansion remained there, steadfast among the mountains, enduring the turbulence of the times. War, division, and social change pushed the mansion into neglect. Moss spread across stone walls, wooden gates lost their paint, and empty corridors echoed with silence. At moments, it seemed as if the grand structure would slowly sink into oblivion, surviving only in the memories of villagers and old books. But history refused to let it be forgotten. The Hmong King's mansion was recognized by the state as a national historical and cultural relic. Generations that followed, scholars, travelers from afar, came to see with their own eyes a work of architecture that carried within it the memory of an entire plateau. The stone stairways, yin-yang roof tiles, and intricately carved wooden pillars all spoke of a time of strength and prosperity for the Vuong family. Today, the mansion is no longer a place for troops or courts, but a space of memory and pride. Visitors come not merely to admire an ancient structure, but to feel the breath of history. To witness that in the gray, rocky land of Hà Giang, there once was a clan that rose to power, lived, fought, and left behind an indelible legacy. Time may erode stone and cover walls with moss, yet it is also time that has turned the Vuong family mansion into a symbol of resilience, of aspiration, and of the harmony between tradition and the nation's history. Though those who built it have long departed, the mansion still stands in the heart of Sa Phinh like a lullaby of the mountains, endlessly telling the story of a proud past and the enduring spirit of Hà Giang, of Vietnam. In the hearts of the Hmong people of Hà Giang, the Vuong family mansion is not merely a fortress of stone walls or moss-covered yin-yang roof tiles. It is a living story, passed down from generation to generation through the sound of the can flute, the verses of love songs, and tales told by the fireside on winter nights. To them, it marks a golden age, when the Hmong once had a leader revered as the Hmong King. The elders often recount to their grandchildren that long ago, Vương Chính Đức built this mansion not only as a dwelling, but also as a declaration of power and authority. Every stone and timber, transported by human strength and horse caravans from distant places, bore witness to determination and wealth. Each grand gate and intricately carved pillar reflected not only the skill of craftsmen, but also the ambition of a family seeking permanence and legacy. In the springtime, songs sung by Hmong youths, the silhouette of the mansion still lingers. It was the source of pride for young men of the village, and in the melodies of the maidens one could hear, "The Hmong King's house stands firm like the mountains, and the Hmong people soar proudly like eagles across the sky." Through these songs, the mansion transcended the boundaries of a single clan, becoming a shared memory for the entire community. Though time has passed and the Vuong family has weathered many upheavals, the mansion remains alive in the spirit of the local people. It exists in the longing of those who journey far from home, in the stories told by village elders to the young, in the eyes of women weaving brocade, and in the haunting notes of the can that echo through festival nights. The mansion is not only a place to behold, but also a lifeline of remembrance, reminding the Hmong of their roots, of an era when they had a symbol of power and prosperity. In this way, folk memory breathes life into the silent stone walls, transforming them into a living soul that bridges past and present. After the golden age of glory, the Vung family mansion entered the dark years of history. As war spread across the northern frontiers, and the Vung clan's power no longer held a central place, the once mighty symbol of the Hmong gradually sank into neglect. The wooden gates that had once stood firm now closed in silence. The stone walls, once echoing with the steps of men and horses, grew desolate, resonating only with the wind whistling through the mountain passes. At times, the mansion seemed like an abandoned witness, quietly observing the upheavals of the land and the fate of its people. The locals still spoke of the Hmong King's house, but with a tinge of regret, as if recalling a legend slowly fading into dust. Yet history never truly forgets what holds genuine value. When the nation entered a new era, the movement to preserve cultural heritage was launched, and once again, the Vung family mansion was named. In 1993, it was recognized as a national historical and cultural relic. This title was more than a certificate, it was a declaration. The Vung mansion could not be allowed to vanish into the mists of time. From that moment, new breath returned. Visitors came in search, scholars arrived to study, and the local people joined hands to protect every wall and every roof tile. The revival of the mansion was not only through restoration, but also through the love and pride of generations. Today, when one steps onto the brick courtyard and hears the rustling of ancient trees, it feels as though one can touch the heartbeat of history itself. The mansion has endured neglect, and from that neglect it has been reborn, strong, resilient, just like the spirit of the Hmong people on the rocky plateau of Hà Giang. After more than a century, the Vung family mansion still stands tall in the valley of Sa Phin, an eternal symbol of Hà Giang's rocky plateau. Once the center of power for a single clan, today it has become a shared pride for the entire nation. Every day, visitors from all corners of Vietnam and from abroad come here. They are astonished by its unique architecture, a blend of traditional Hmong design, refined Chinese craftsmanship, and Western influences from the early 20th century. Yet beyond its material beauty, what they truly feel is the soul of a community that once lived proudly, once fought bravely, and once affirmed its identity amidst the grandeur of the mountains. For the people of Hà Giang, the mansion is more than a relic. It is a living memory, a story to pass down to children and grandchildren, that the Hmong once had a leader and once built a symbol for future generations to hold their heads high. In every spring festival, in every note of the Ken flute that echoes across the plateau, the shadow of the mansion still lingers, a reminder of pride that will never fade. Today, preserving and honoring the mansion's value has become a shared responsibility. Authorities and locals work hand in hand to protect every stone wall and wooden gate, ensuring they endure against sun and rain. The layers of moss no longer stand only as marks of time, but as proof of the resilience of heritage. From a symbol of power, through years of neglect, to revival, the Vung family mansion has now become today's pride, a living heritage that connects the past with the present and inspires the future. It reminds us that heritage never truly dies, so long as love and pride for one's roots continue to live in people's hearts. As Vương Chính Đức, the Hmong King, entered the final years of his life, the power and prestige of the Vung family needed a worthy successor. At that moment, Vương Chí Sình emerged as the natural choice, not only because of his familial ties, but also because of his outstanding qualities and diplomatic skill. Born in turbulent times, Vương Chí Sình grew up in the mountains of Hà Giang, surrounded by stories of his adoptive father, the man who had built a legacy for an entire community. From early on, he learned the importance of observing the changing tides of history. He understood that to preserve the family's influence, one needed not only military strength but also wisdom and flexibility in dealing with outside powers. During the period when the French intensified their presence in Hà Giang and the Vietnamese revolutionary movement began to spread, Vương Chí Sình chose a path of balance. Outwardly, he maintained relations with the French authorities to ensure stability for the Hmong people. Yet inwardly, his heart leaned toward the revolution, believing that only independence and freedom could secure a true future for his people. This conviction led to a special bond with Ho Chi Minh, from whom he received a sword engraved with the words, Ton Trung Bao Quoc, utmost loyalty to the nation, a solemn pledge to bind his fate with that of the country. The people of Hà Giang regarded Vương Chí Sình with deep respect. He was not only the heir to Vương Chính Đức authority, but also a symbol of shrewd leadership, a man who knew how to navigate the times while protecting the traditions and safety of his community. His path opened a new chapter for the Vuong family, transforming it from a semi-autonomous local power into one that became intertwined with the destiny of the Vietnamese nation. The Vuong family mansion, nestled in the Sa Phin Valley, once stood as a symbol of power and wealth. When it was first completed in the early 20th century, its solid stone walls, solemn yin-yang tiled roofs, and intricate carvings astonished all who came. It was not only the residence of the Vuong clan, but also the political, military, and commercial center of the region. Yet history is never still. After the era of Vương Chính Đức and then Vương Chí Sình, the mansion gradually lost its glory. Political upheavals, wars, and shifting times pushed it into neglect. For many years it stood in silence, moss covering its roofs, cracks spreading through its stone walls, and empty corridors stretching into the distance. Villagers passing by still spoke of its old stories, but the mansion seemed like a forgotten witness of history. It was only after the country's reunification that its cultural and historical value was truly recognized. Restoration began, reviving its old majesty and returning the mansion to life. Gradually, the Vuong mansion was reborn, becoming a destination for those seeking to understand a special chapter of history where the past and the present converge. Today, walking along its weathered corridors, visitors find not just an ancient structure, but also the echo of history, the story of a clan, a people, and the turbulent journey of an entire nation. After the Vuong family no longer held their position of leadership, the mansion at Sa Phin entered a long period of neglect. The historical upheavals of the 20th century wars, political changes, and transformations in social life turned what was once a center of power into a silent dwelling in the mountains. The yin-yang tiled roofs grew thick with moss, stone walls cracked and weathered, and wild grass overtook the brick courtyard. The grand chambers that had once welcomed guests and witnessed critical discussions now echoed only with the sound of wind and shadows of emptiness. Villagers passing by would glance at it, but in their memory, the mansion had become a ruin, a glorious past buried under the weight of time. Yet history is never completely forgotten. By the late 20th century, as Hà Giang began to draw greater attention, cultural researchers and local authorities turned their eyes toward the Vuong mansion. It was recognized not merely as the residence of one clan, but as a precious heritage that reflected an entire era where indigenous culture, imperial power, and even colonial presence converged. Restoration projects were gradually undertaken. The old tiles were replaced, wooden beams reinforced, and the brick courtyard once again echoed with footsteps. The mansion of the Hmong King regained part of its former majesty, not only to preserve history, but to tell today's generations the story of a land, a people, and a lineage of leadership that once existed. In its journey from oblivion to revival, The Vuong Mansion embodies the spirit of Hà Giang itself, enduring through hardship, standing resilient amid the mountains, and now shining as a symbol of pride for the entire region. Today, the Vuong family mansion in Sa Phan is no longer the center of power it once was a century ago, but it has become a symbol of history and cultural pride in Hà Giang. Visitors from near and far come to walk through its moss-covered stone gates, admire the yin-yang tiled roofs, and listen to stories of Vương Chính Đức, Vương Chí Sình, and the entire lineage that wrote a remarkable chapter in the history of the Rocky Highlands. For the local people, the mansion is not merely an architectural work, but a living memory, a reminder of their roots, traditions, and the identity of the Hmong people. Hà Giang today is on the path of development, and the King's Mansion plays an important role in that journey. It has become a cultural tourism destination, linking past and present while providing new livelihoods for the community. The stories of courage, leadership, and resilience of the Vuong leaders are retold as a source of inspiration, instilling pride and a sense of preservation among the younger generations. The mansion is not just a relic frozen in time, but a testament to the enduring vitality of this land. It affirms that, despite wars, upheavals, and years of neglect, spiritual values can be revived and shine once again. Today, the Vuong family mansion stands tall amidst the mountains of Hà Giang, an eternal symbol, a pride not only of the Hmong people, but of all Vietnam. The Hmong King's mansion is not merely a structure of stone and wood, but a vivid symbol of history, culture, and the spiritual strength of the Hmong people in northernmost Vietnam. Through upheavals, from its foundation, fierce battles against foreign invaders, to years of neglect and eventual revival, the mansion has stood firm as a witness to time. The story of Vương Chính Đức, Vương Chí Sình, and the Vuong lineage is not only the history of one family, but the history of an entire land. It reminds us of resilience, wisdom, and the unyielding desire to rise above the harsh mountains. Today, the mansion is more than just a tourist destination. It is a source of pride, a bridge linking the present with the past. It tells us that though turmoil may fade, the essential values, faith, identity, and unity, will endure forever. Thus, the King's Mansion is not simply a relic, but a living legend, leaving its mark in the heart of every Vietnamese and in the admiring gaze of friends from around the world.